All right, I've got it and I'm recording, so
Okay,
you're just
awesome.
attending now, I
Alright.
think.
Yep.
Cool. We'll call our meeting to order. Is there any public comment for items not on the agenda?
There's one person online from the public named Evan. Yeah. And you know, as an attendee, I haven't promoted them to a panelist. So I wonder if you would like
Oh, so
to.
we can't even see that they're there.
No, I mean, this is intentional.
Yeah.
We're-
The last
Sorry.
time I chaired a
Sorry.
meeting, I think that was then.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Hang on a second, and I can. Just wanted to be ready to share minutes when we got to that, but,
Can
actually,
they message in the chat? Are they able to?
Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do.
I believe so, yeah, to Matt, because he's the host.
Well, while that's happening in terms of public comment, I just have comment about our agenda, which is I'm planning to leave after we do our part here for personal reasons.
Cool.
Evan, if you're here and you have a public comment or something you want to bring up in the meeting, feel free to put it in the chat and we can address it in public comment. But while that's happening, I think we can probably move on to the minutes.
okay. All right, I just put a message, I just put that in, that's for me, all right, and so. Minutes.
The software pushed together a lot of words that should have had a dash between them or something. I fixed the first one and then I realized it was a constant thing.
So where are you seeing, I'm sorry, it's not sharing.
And Shayla just joined, so you want to promote her.
All right, hang on a second, let's do. Allow to talk. And promote panelists, all right, Shayla should be coming in.
She's here.
Give her a second to.
All right, guys. My computer decided to reload Zoom. That's exciting.
It's just the right time for that.
Great. It's great.
We started and we just pulled up the minutes, or we're just about to pull up the minutes.
Are you comfortable continuing since I
Yeah, I can do that.
thanks.
I will now. Actually pull up the minutes. There we go. There.
Perfect.
All
You
right.
can see there, the red part, I fixed award-winning ones
Oh,
run
I see.
together.
Yeah,
But that happens throughout the rest of the document, so I didn't keep fixing them.
I just put a bunch of them in, a bunch of spaces into.
Did you?
Not sure why that
and
happened.
that's like a double there, the end too.
It's really weird.
Just some kind of a copy paste
Yeah, that wasn't there when I.
thing. Tier 1 presentation is.
I had no other updates.
Okay, great. And let's go watch, that's right, did that. And biological. Anybody have anything else?
Any other comments? There's just one more.
Oh. Where can we know where?
Short term right there has an extra.
Yeah.
Well, it's not term, right?
It has an
It also got
underscore,
replicated at
not
the
a
end.
dash.
It wants a dash, doesn't want an
Said it
underscore.
replicated at the end of the paragraph.
And in the
That's
fifth.
That's really
bizarre.
weird. I don't know what's going on.
That's happening when it gets edited somehow.
It's automatically happening weird.
There's something, yeah, on section 5.2 about Williston Walk. Oh, and section 6, I don't,
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, it kept
keeps going.
repeating. So
Oh, my.
where this M dash thing happened, it would then,
Good lord.
I don't know why.
Every, in front of every single one.
Every edit
That impact fee,
where
Yeah,
it was
offsets.
a missing space, you put the space
Oh.
in, you get the thing.
it's before.
At the end with the, it's in a weird place. It's not.
Yeah. Well, we can,
could we mess
Alright,
with
well,
this off?
yeah, if it's
Okay.
just punctuation stuff, we'll just fix it and republish them.
Yeah.
Was the other one HANA in 5 something, a similar?
It was the same thing with the
Yeah,
orange
yeah.
stuff, weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we will, yeah, it's like it took
Fix that.
You put the space in and it replicated and in a weird place and replicated.
it took the underscore and then turned it into,
Is it the AI thing?
it's gotta be some formatting thing that's coming from that transcription. So anyway, we will
should
apply
we-
some human intelligence to it and,
I'll
make it.
I'll
readable.
move that we accept the minutes as they will be amended. To fix punctuation and.
What tense are we?
As amended, yeah.
Just say as amended, but with the punctuation errors corrected.
Okay,
Is there a second? Nikki, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
And
opposed?
I'm abstaining, just so you know.
Me too.
Any abstentions? 2 abstentions?
great.
Great.
So Jill and Stephen abstain.
Yeah.
Cool.
And up for discussion, we have the Williston sewer allocation ordinance.
Yeah. So. Hang on a second, see if did I link to the ordinance?
It wasn't in the
Oh,
email.
No, in the end, it wasn't.
All right, so I'm just gonna put this on the screen for a minute and. Preface this by just letting folks know that we're coming into sewer allocation ordinance attachment A season. Those of you who have been here before know it's the time of year when we talk about wastewater treatment capacity and how much of that we will make available in the coming year. But over the next year or so, you're probably going to start hearing more about the allocation ordinance that attachment A is attached to. And so I'm going to share my screen and just show you that real quick and talk a little bit about it. This is just straight from the town's website. There are no proposed edits here or anything like that. This is just the town sewer allocation ordinance. And the first thing I want you to note is that the last date of adoption is about 11 years ago. Hasn't been updated in that time. And the update that was made 11 years ago was a really small surgical change. So the broad policy moves in this document date back to the late 1990s and early 2000s. What that means is they date back to a time when the town owned fundamentally less treatment capacity at the Essex Junction plant. There was quite a lot of demand for that very limited capacity with new residential subdivisions and commercial developments. And this ordinance was drafted in that context.
Start the recording. God.
I did start the recording. I am recording. So, what I want to focus on. Sorry, I'm just navigating around all the Zoom memos.
There
menus
there
as
is still a edit in there.
Yeah, not my document.
Reference.
It's only been there for 11 years like that.
At least it's not in pencil. I've seen worse.
Yeah, so the ordinance covers a number of topics. The one that I want to talk about mostly is capacity allocation under number 5 and capacity for individual developments under number 8. But broadly, this is the document that governs how the town makes wastewater treatment capacity available to private development within its borders and keeps track of it and deals with, capacity that's purchased and then never put to use and how the town's able to regain that and things like that. But we're gonna go just talk a little bit about the capacity for developments. And
I think two pages back.
I'm looking for 8. Here we go.
Oh, okay, you're doing 8 first?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, this is sort of, I think this one is actually sort of the, encouraging specific development line we have in attachment A now. Yeah, that's what this, sorry, I just wanted to make sure this wasn't about specific subdivisions. Here we go. This is what I wanted. So in 8.2, you're gonna see a reference to chapter 11 of the Unified Development Bylaw. That's the infamous growth management chapter, which, if you've been playing along, has changed a lot since 2015 and has definitely changed a lot since the early 2000s when this policy document was adopted. And as you know, now we have a number of pathways that are alternative pathways to growth management for residential projects to come online. We have specific plan. The Glazer, now called Windswept Acres project, went through that. And we have final plans for it sitting on our desk as of today. There's also inclusionary zoning. And so the document here really kind of assumes that all new residential development will go through the procedures here, when that hasn't been the case for some time. And that means we kind of have to look at development that goes through an alternate approval path and just sort of try to give it a parallel process like this. And really what that comes down to is some interplay between our department and Public Works. And we talked a little bit a couple meetings ago about the sequencing of approvals between those two departments and how that can be a challenge. And this is another place where that's a challenge, which is at what point in the approval path can the town demand that the applicant go upstairs and buy their capacity? And what that really means is start paying for the right to put the capacity to use. And it's a small percentage of the total cost of the connection fee, and you pay it every 6 months. And obviously that's a revenue stream for the town. It also lets the town take that capacity out of the category of being available for any particular development and put it under somebody's name and say, this is for the annex, or this is for Windswept Acres. And we get revenue stream out of that. So this ordinance says basically under this 8.2, and I think in another provision, mostly 8.3, it sets the moment at which you have to go upstairs and purchase your capacity as after growth management. So 2 problems. Saying somebody needs to do something after something else doesn't really tell you when they need to do it.
Plus, it's no longer a specific step.
Right, and some people don't have this step in their approval path. So you get these funny questions like, well, we're working through the process of approving a final plan for Windswept Acres. Well, when do they need to go buy that capacity? They certainly need to own that capacity before they start pulling permits, because they need to own it, and then we take it out of their account they own it in, and they pay the full connection fee, and then they pay use fees going forward. But that's one issue, is the timing. And that we're kind of making it up for those non-growth management projects, and that's an issue. So the assumption that all residential capacity is handed out in parallel with growth management is a challenge. And then the other part, I'm sorry, I'm gonna make people seasick. I gotta bounce back to the table of contents for a second.
Can I ask a question about that timing thing?
Yes,
So people, development, they generally wanna wait as long as possible until they need to buy their allocation?
Sure.
Or is there any question of like, well, I gotta make sure I can have, like, is there contention around it that they like want to get slotted in soon, or by the time they buy it, do they know that it will always be available? So they want to kind of push it off, so they need to not make the payments. Like, is there tension there?
There is. So on the one hand, once you sign up for it, you're paying to rent that capacity essentially, on a every 6 months basis. So it does cost some money. The other part is sewer capacity is made available on the fiscal year, and there's no sort of rollover. So every year, when we review attachment A and then select board ultimately adopts it, they're saying this is how many gallons per day will be available for these different categories of use over the next fiscal year. And once it's all spoken for, the next applicant who wants some needs to wait until the fiscal year turns over. And that carries some challenges in terms of just, planning for orderly progress of development. So,
We've talked about that before, that it doesn't make sense.
yeah. So, every year for the last many years when I've done the attachment A part, I've looked back into this ordinance and said, we need to start thinking about recommending some changes to this. And the other reason for that, that's becoming more and more important is, I think I just want to go to 5 for capacity allocation, if I am right.
There.
Yeah. So this is the procedure to establish attachment A. And I'm gonna bring 5.3 to the center. So the gallons that are made available in these use categories.
Yeah,
And a couple things, ever since my predecessor Ken Belleville have been here, for example, we actually just have a new residential category. We don't distinguish between Taft Corners mixed use commercial and then a separate bucket for residential and village. It's always just been one bucket of new residential. So we haven't been following that anyway. But almost more importantly, this division is really challenging. See what I
See ya.
Now reminds me, I gotta throw town meeting TV on my phone so I know when they're coming up on bylaw. When we start thinking about things like tax increment finance districts for Taft Corners, or really concentrated build outs of residential in the growth center, a geographic distribution of sewer capacity starts to make a lot more sense than a use-based one. And one of our recommendations to the select board, if it should choose to move forward with tax increment financing, would be to say, effectively, you can't do tax increment financing and encourage growth over here and then not support it with necessary infrastructure over here. You need to make those two come together. You need everything rowing in the same direction, because new development is how you pay for the infrastructure that a TIF supports. So I just wanted to make that really.
Can I also, Matt, can I also just say, like, I don't know if this is the categories or if this is, well, it's two things. Thank you for bringing it up. I would really love to try to get an amendment in front of the select board by the fall, so that the next time we do this, you are doing it under a better system. I think, I'm open to faster than that, but I think,
yeah,
I so appreciate you bringing it up every year, and I'm so tired of not having fixed it. I think we should just fix it. It's not working anymore. So that was my first request. My second is a question, which is, one of the other things I want to make sure that we address is that, like the TIF, I think the TIF is a good example, but also just right now we are facing such a dramatic housing shortage. There's not a reason to save sewer capacity for 20 years from now. Like, that's not that doesn't actually make sense to me. Like, we need housing now. And I would rather have housing now using the capacity that we currently own. And then in the future, if we need to have more, then that's a different conversation. But I just not, like, from a policy and like what the town needs perspective, this like
Mhm.
rationing thing is not logical to me, in terms of meeting community need. And tell me if I'm like totally off base there, but it doesn't make sense. Does not make sense.
No, you're not off base. What you're saying is a more eloquent version of what I was saying. Absolutely.
But the thing though is that we never get to the limit though, right? Have we? I
Well-
thought we never.
You mean?
That's right,
the
Nikki.
whole
We
thing?
never, we're getting,
Yeah.
people
It's
are
20 years
using way more than actually gets used.
No,
Yeah.
what I meant though is that we never have a situation where someone come in and wanted to do and we say, no, you're gonna wait for next year. That's what I meant.
Oh, I don't know. That I don't know.
I don't know.
As far as I never hear such thing happening. Do we?
So in terms of a project that's
Yeah.
unable to
Yeah.
purchase capacity and needs to wait, we've gotten close the last
Okay.
couple of years, but we've avoided it in part by making more residential capacity available the last couple of years, so 30,000 gallons instead of what was traditionally more like 10 to 12. And that has allowed for some more long-range planning, but you know, for example, when we look at the tax increment finance district idea and you say, well, I really need, this is a rough number, so don't quote me on this, but I really need 60 to 90 million dollars worth of new brand list value to be added to the tax increment district in the first 5 years. That would, in terms of residential development, probably be more multifamily residential than is currently supportable with even 30,000 gallons. You might need to say something instead like, we don't care what year it is, there's 100 or 150,000 gallons per day available inside the TIF boundary for all time. Come bring your project in, and you know, if we need to load more capacity into that, we will. The housing target we've been talking about, the mid-level target of about 3,200 units, is the one that is pretty much achievable without redeveloping any property in Taft Corners. Not all on the Trader Lane TIF, but in the broader growth center. That is also a number that's achievable by using almost all of what's left in terms of what the town owns at the Essex Junction plant today, which is about 250,000 gallons per day. So those are like the really broad numbers we're playing with. But Eric and I have been planning that we're going to be having a retreat with the select board to talk about the tax increment finance district. And one of the other elements we'd be bringing up is to support growth in the tax increment finance district that would happen quickly enough to help you fund the infrastructure needs. You would need to make this sewer capacity available in a different way than you have in the past. You can't have somebody go through all of that permitting and have all of that infrastructure underway and then say, oh, actually it's it's August 1st and we sold all the capacity and you need to wait till July 1 of next year to come in, and we can't give you any permits until that happens. So that's sort of the last part of the talk I wanted to give about beyond attachment A and some of the things we need to be looking at. And Sheila, I think by fall is a good time frame to get this done.
I support that, but I'm a little bit concerned with paying for sewage capacity in a TIF bond or whatever. Because I view TIF as being for the infrastructure that's above and beyond the normal infrastructure, like roads and sewer and water are given. If you're allowing building, it's like, are you gonna do something extra? Like rec path over the interstate or
Right.
Some street amenities that would not normally be, to me, TIF is to sort of leverage going above and beyond.
Yeah.
And if we're spending a huge amount just to add the normal amount of sewer that would be expected there, I worry if we can afford it.
Yeah, so what we're looking at to clarify as a potential TIF project wouldn't be the purchase of additional capacity at the
No.
plant.
But
It would be,
transport of the.
it would be infrastructure upgrades
Yeah.
within the town that the TIF wastewater flows through. and I think there is a fair question, which is there, because you're talking about TIF, a but-for argument behind that? But for
Yeah.
these upgrades, we would not be able to get this development in the TIF. And I think there is, but it's not a but-for argument for 100% of those upgrades.
Yeah.
It's a but-for argument for maybe 15 or 20% of their cost. And we just got a revised sewer facilities study from our engineer 2 weeks ago. That will help us inform the sequencing of those projects and their likely cost.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but some of it would happen sooner because of a TIF, but most of it is needed for the town to put the capacity it owns at the plant to use. In other words, we need bigger pipes and more powerful pumps in that system if we were to actually put that additional 250,000 gallons that we own into the system. And there's a little bit of a geographic component as to development in which place triggers which pump station needing to be upgraded, et cetera. But ultimately, it all flows into a pipe that goes under the Winooski River that's too small in diameter, and that's the biggest of those sewer infrastructure projects. Ultimately, will be to bore a new transmission pipe to the plant under the Winooski River. That's
Joy of joys.
very expensive, but very important if you've ever had a toilet not work.
And so I gather attaching it to the bridge is not an option.
I think no.
It's a much less expensive way to do it.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm just trying to keep an eye on this.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, how are we doing?
See how
timing
we're doing.
wise?
Well, oddly,
We got one more topic for me, right, after this?
they shouldn't start coming out of the bylaw till
7:40.
7:40, but it appears town meeting, if anybody else wants to look on YouTube, it's just town meeting TV, Williston Select Board, but mine says it's waiting for town meeting TV to start the meeting. So I might be able to join the Zoom from my phone and look at it that way. Sorry, everybody online while we just.
While that's happening, Matt's heard this already, but I don't know if Steve might have heard it. I'm planning to leave when we go over to the select board and count on other people to represent
You know,
our
me and
things.
Yeah.
Okay.
all of us will be there.
And I know people online can switch over online to that meeting, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And it's probably the only thing that I would say is valuable to point out if there's questions about the short-term rental ordinance is that non-residential owners of a building that is in short-term rental can very well be viewed as a business use of that building, which is not allowed in our residential areas except for the listed home businesses that are possible. So I feel like you could say that already it's not allowed, but we're making it clearer. And certainly we're avoiding a future problem and having to grandfather people and get sued for changing the rules if we do it earlier rather than later.
Yeah, it looks like Melinda is talking about the bylaw things. Could we
Okay,
get a
good.
brief, like, rundown? Like, I know we just talked about the short-term rental ordinance, that's
Yeah.
gonna be brought up, and we have bylaw revisions on the agenda next,
That-
but I wonder if doing a recap on what we
Sure.
expect from the select board, if we think they'll have any questions, if we'll be called up, kind of what you're hoping for.
Yeah, so Melinda's over there representing the bylaw 1.0, which is not the things that are on the list on your agenda tonight.
Oh,
Those are the
okay.
cleanup citations.
Yes.
The affordability formula, and other things that we did back in the fall.
Yeah.
So that's just our transmittal to them on that going forward. So my hope is only Melinda will have to ask or answer questions on that. I put the bylaw 2.0 list back on this agenda just because I added a few more things to it.
Yes, do you want to talk about the unmanned vehicle landing areas?
It's all vehicle landing areas, so. Sorry, I'll probably jump right back into a screen share just to get this, up in front of me. But, I can do that while I talk. So the aerial or, aircraft landing areas is one. Oh, I think we got a letter from the Secretary of Transportation's office almost 10 years ago, about this one.
I don't think they are seeing it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it there. Sorry, I'm driving and talking at the same time.
None of us are seeing it yet, but he's talking.
I'm getting there.
At least I see.
But. Oh, share for real, come on. Here we go. Bylaw list. Awesome. Come on. All right, so the one Chapin's asking about is probably down near the bottom.
It's the fifth one up or so.
Yeah. Prohibition on private aircraft landing and takeoff areas, with the added emerging issue of drone delivery. So this came about, like I said, 10 years ago. If you own a property and occasionally land a helicopter there, you have created a private aircraft landing area, a private landing strip, essentially. And if you do that, even infrequently, basically the state, through the Secretary of Transportation, can't tell you to cut it out, even though they normally have jurisdiction over those sorts of things. And this has come up in some of the wealthier rural areas of Vermont, where someone buys a big property and they come in from out of town on their helicopter or their small aircraft and they land. And some disgruntled neighbor calls up the Department of Transportation, VTrans, and says, "Hey, don't you guys regulate airfields?" I say, "Yeah, well, we do." They said, "Well, my neighbor's got one. He keeps landing his helicopter in his yard." And what they told us in that letter was, they said, "We can't say no to those things unless your zoning prohibits them." They said, "If the local zoning prohibits it, we can then take some jurisdiction over those things and say no to them."
Cause I know people use ultralight aircraft too,
Mhm.
and if you own 100 acres and you wanna take off in your ultralight and zoom around. And then how is that different from if you're flying a little drone?
Yeah.
To do photographing?
Right, and so you don't actually need to prohibit it, you just need to state in your zoning that it's a type of use that you're regulating, and you might require
Okay,
a DRV hearing for it, you might exempt consumer grade drones, you might
Yeah.
exempt drone delivery.
okay, so
But it's,
regulation instead of prohibition.
yeah, but it's one of those things that, we were made aware of years ago, because
Yeah.
normally, if you were to create an airfield, you would go through a permitting process with the State Department of Transportation. But their process is designed, if you do all the right things, you get to have your airfield, and it doesn't really matter what part of town it's in or who it's near or far away from. But if there's local zoning that says, airfields are okay here, but not there, there's some deference, by the State Department of Transportation on that. So it was one of those ones, I had it on a scrap of paper somewhere that I hadn't thrown out, and I said, well, as long as this is sort of the kitchen sink list of potential bylaw amendments, I wanted to get it up there. While we have just a few more minutes, a couple of the other ones near the bottom that I added on. We've had a bunch of questions about standards in the form-based code, and I will probably have the developer who's interested in those to you soon. I'm just gonna tell you, it's somebody who's looking at potentially building a hotel adjacent to the Bed Bath and Beyond property, fronting on a section of Trader Lane. They are looking at a longer building than is currently allowed, which has that 180-foot limit. They're looking at something more in the 200s, and they are looking at some of their parking being closer than the 30-foot setback, but still behind a street wall. And there's a couple of other site planning things there that you may just hear the request about. And think about how that plays with the rest of the code and we probably have a slightly bigger project around the form-based code to just look at the performance of the existing buildings that were built under it and think about how those standards were working. Also a little bit, you know, this new applicant is a hotel. We have one hotel that was built under the code. Hotel comes in as a commercial building with a commercial ground story. But hotel rooms on the ground floor are kind of more like apartments than hotel rooms, so the elevation requirements don't really make as much sense as if it was a retail
Yes.
ground floor.
Yes.
So there's some interesting things that have shown up there. Another emerging one, in the industrial zoning district west, and several other chapters, we have this statement in the list of allowed uses that says public administration is allowed. And then in the sort of the column next to that says parks are allowed everywhere, but public administration is a far broader category than that. It might mean all government buildings and facilities. And guess what we're getting questioned on?
Yeah.
You know, does the zoning allow this or that federal agency to be located in this or that part of town or this or that building? And there's very little clarity in that statement in the bylaw, and we want to think about that. Last one, I got a complaint from somebody recently, and it's an issue I was a little bit aware of, which is maybe adding some additional rules about the placement of ADA parking spaces in parking lots. And so take a look at this for yourself. What I'm going to tell you is there are ADA parking spaces near Jersey Mike's and Crumble that do comply with the letter of what ADA says an ADA parking space has to be, but make very little sense to the person using them. And in words, what I can say is you have two ADA spaces that park head in facing Jersey Mike's. There's a van aisle in between them, just like you would expect there to be. But if you get into that van aisle and go toward Jersey Mike's, you run into a curb instead of a ramp. And there's a reason for that, because the sidewalk depth in front of Jersey Mike's is not enough to accommodate a ramp and then a level sidewalk up to the building. What you have to do is navigate behind your own parked vehicle, not anybody else's, but your own, and get to a ramp that's a little bit further away. And so Emily and I went and we pulled all of that guidance up from ADA. We looked at exactly what it said, and we said, you know, to an engineer designing a site, this is a legal ADA space, but we're getting citizen complaints about its usability. And just like we require more ADA spaces than ADA does in some situations, we could also add some standards for placement there. To just discourage illogical layouts of ADA spaces. So that's that one.
But just require a ramp to the sidewalk from any unloading area.
Yes,
So just that hashed area next to.
to say that aisle has to, you know, go into a ramp. You know, you need the most direct path to the business, not just the legal one. Are you still watching the?
Melinda's still
Oh, good.
talking about, she's on to chapter 11, page 12 of 18.
Oh, good. That's gonna be the affordability formula. Will probably take the most time for them to work through, so we probably have a few
And
minutes.
the one we're talking, this ADA space we're talking about, it's not solvable just by backing into the space?
Well, it's solvable if, you know, here's the thing, is if you have the aerial view of it, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. It's just from a user perspective, it makes no sense. It might be solvable with a sign at the end of that aisle that says, to use this space, you need to do this, but that just sort of reveals the foolishness of it that much more. And so we don't necessarily have a legal right to demand something else there right now, but it makes sense to tune up the regulation
and would it be rectified with just different striping to move where the space is located?
It might. So what as you might imagine, I think some of what happens is there's tension between placing those ADA spaces and placing, I think in the case of the Jersey Mike's crumble, there might be a delivery driver space or something else that the businesses want.
Yeah,
And that's in tension with that. And so again, just having the bylaw say that, your
Yeah.
first thing you have to do.
Yep.
Is do
Yep.
some ADA spaces that make sense. It does also just happen when, you're going for a more compact development pattern. If you've been over to those parking lots, they're more compact than, many. You have to be a little more careful maneuvering in them. And so when you're going from a building face to a building face and there's a certain number of rows of parking, required landscape islands, drive aisles, et cetera, that you need to fit, it all starts to get truncated. And in this case, the depth of that sidewalk around those entrances lost out and it made it, not possible to put in a complying ramp up from the curb. So, we could have rules that just encourage a different solution, or maybe, the developer would have to say to those businesses, I can put your business here, but I can't give you that number of reserved spaces because I have to put the ADA spaces there. Quick story on ADA, I said we require more spaces than, the federal law requires. That played out recently over at Shaw's in Maple Tree Place. The parking lot was restriped over the end of the fall. And when it was restriped, some of the extra spaces that had been required were not restriped as ADA spaces. And our phone rang immediately with people who make use of them. Where did the space go? We reached out to Maple Tree Place. They said, we're not sure what happened. Our contractor did that, we'll get them to fix it. They were supposed to just restripe what was there. Emily soldiered into a multi-page email exchange with the painting contractor from Oregon, who tried to argue that he only had to follow regular ADA. We said no, and they're coming back in the spring to fix it.
As a time check, it looks like Melinda's wrapping up near chapter 14, so
All right.
probably adjourn the meeting.
or,
So
turn it,
We
yeah.
adjourned. A quorum of the planning commission may be in attendance next door at the select board.
Okay, see you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. All right, I'll probably be a little behind as I just get this recording taken care of.
For the short-term rental ordinance, can